Well, let's talk about the real estate market that we have today, January, February of 2024. Now, I've been in business since 1972, so that's 50 years plus. I was very, very fortunate that I started in Chicago and I was under the wings of some people who took very good care of me, and I made a lot of money. I was 26 or 27 years old, and Paul Volcker raised interest rates and put me out of business. I was amazed. I was shocked. I had no idea such a thing could happen. Well, since then, I've learned a lot. And so I'm going to talk to you about what I have learned and how this responds to what you, as an investors and people who want to create wealth, this is how this is going to affect you. So now I built a timing model, and a timing model works very, very accurately. It's based basically on an 18-year cycle. Now, these cycles just keep repeating over and over and over again for hundreds of years. We've got data going all the way back to before the Revolutionary War. You can see the same 18-year cycle working everywhere. Seems to be working around the world as well. They're not all synchronized, but they seem to have an 18-year cycle. Now, it could be 18.3, it could be about 18.6. Nothing says it can't be 17. And there are some signposts. So we've talked about the signposts before, but let me talk about what the timing model is saying right now. Now, you know that I've been interviewing Charles Nenner for many, many years. Charles Nenner always says, I know what is going to happen, I don't know why. And that's what a timing model does. It tells us what is going to happen. And I want you to look at this because the timing model is saying that it is going to complete. And it says that the real estate cycle is completing and it's going to go into trouble. Now, we've been focusing on housing, but you realize that commercial real estate is also part of the real estate cycle. And right at the moment, the problems that are evident are focused in the commercial section, in the commercial space. Let me go to my first slide and let's just talk about what we're looking at. Now, we have been talking about the fact that these cycles are evident and that they're real and that they're here. Now, I must tell you that if we go back to Fenix, because this is where I'm at, I was here during these days, that you can clearly see. Now, this chart is coming from the Federal Reserve Electronic Data System. You can clearly see peak 1 and peak 2. Now, it peaked in 1986. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit for myself. That was peak number 1. Q3 of 1986 was peak 1. And in Q1 of 1987 was peak 2. Then it went drop down from here. Now, we led into the completion. Let me ask you, if we have 2 completions, because this would have been 2 completions ago, that's 36 years. What if you can add 36 on top of 1986? How many years is that? And when is that? That's 2022, Q3 of 2022. And Q1 of 2023 would be 2 cycles later. That's right now. So we've passed this. So let me go to my next cycle. Let's just talk about what we see. So now here's the median home prices here in the United States. You can look at this. You can clearly see peak number 1 and peak number 2. And peak 1 came in at Q4 of 2022. Let me go to my other slide. Let me go backwards here if I can. So that takes us pretty close. That's very, very close. That's right within the time frames. Now, I'm going to tell you, let me just go back into this. Now, let's preface this in 1986. Something dramatic had happened. That is the why of why the completion was going to take place. In 1986, we had the Tax Reform Act, and that changed the depreciation for commercial real estate. The depreciation used to be depreciated in 15 years, and you could do triple appreciation on that. So you could do it in 3 times. So they changed it from a 15-year depreciation to 27 and a half years, which is what we have now. And a lot of the commercial buildings were no longer viable. They were being sold on tax benefits, not on actual income. And once the tax benefits were taken away, well, the building was no longer good. Now, I remember the exuberance. I'm going to tell you that when in the 1980s here in Phoenix, business was just going like crazy. And I knew a 26-year-old developer, and he was really just a framer. And his girlfriend was 40 years old, and she was a bank executive. And they borrowed money to build a shopping center. They had a 50,000 square foot building at the center that they're going to put a grocery store in as the anchor, and then rent out the retail center. So it was a big center. They made a big mistake is that they never procured the shopping center. They never got the grocery store to take the main building. So they never were able to fill up their commercial space, yet they were able to get the money for it because that was the exuberance. And of course, it went to the RTC, which is the Resolution Trust Corporation, where you see that shaded area. That was where the foreclosure, but commercial led the way into the debacle. So let me go back to these slides. Now, here's what's going on here today. Again, we peaked in May of 2022 at 475. You can clearly see on that top, you can clearly see the first peak. It's very, very evident. These are this data is coming by John Wade, coming right out of the Armless here, the MLS. And you can see that the second peak came in June of 2023. Now, I'm going to tell you, when the real estate cycle completes, it gives you two peaks. Both of ours are in, and we're just kind of bouncing around, waiting for the decline. And you can see that the prices have come down. So we just got the most recent data for December of 2023, and the average median price here in Phoenix is $430,000. It continues to go down. Now, we fully expect that the prices are going to continue down. How bad they get now? Phoenix, is probably the number one and number two county in the United States for in-migration. Arizona is down around 8, but really Arizona is really just Phoenix. Most of the other cities don't get much migration. They all come to Phoenix. So we really, when the statistics come out, they don't really tell the true story, because Phoenix, Arizona is probably one of the number one destinations in the United States, and probably one of the top 5 markets for growth in the entire world. So this is really a really good location. But we've been focused on housing because that's where most of our business is at. We're very conservative. We sell single family homes, generally affordable homes for rent, for ma, pa, and small investors. Most of our people they have 2 or 3 or 4 properties. So sometimes they have 10, sometimes they have 20, but we're not the big mega builders or mega investors that a lot have. Let me go ahead, next one. Now, why are these cities endangered? Why are they endangered? We've been talking about these cities being endangered because they have bad governance, they've got bad taxes, they've got crime, they've got civil disruption, they've got all kinds of problems. And a lot of these, the main cities, of course, no one's going back to work. That's the why. So the data has been telling us what is going to happen. It says that we're going to have problems in the real estate field. And the why is that people are working from home. They're not going to the central cities, and the central city is imploding. And it's most evident in these cities. And if you have properties in these cities, you really need to talk to us to do a 1031 exchange, which is like, it's very inexpensive. You can, for almost all our transactions, you can take a small rental and do a 1031 exchange and exchange out of Chicago into Florida, Texas, or Arizona for about $1,200. Why aren't you doing this? It just amazes me. Speaking of that, if you like our videos, I could really use your support by subscribing and give me a thumbs up. I work really hard on getting these things, and I'd always like your comments to see what you think is good about these. So let me go to the next slide. Let's just continue with this. Now, here's what's happening in the major cities. Now, Blackstone, you know what Blackstone is. Blackstone is a major player in this space. This is their tower. They're defaulting on their Manhattan office building. They've abandoned the tower. It was valued at $605 million in 2014, and it was just recently appraised for $175 million. Now, that's a really, really big difference. Now, they probably had a 10-year mortgage, and they had to come up for refinance, and the value of the property dropped that much. So it's down 71%. So Blackstone defaulted on $308 million mortgage and now it's available for $150 million. Now, what do you think of that? From 605 to 150, you know that they're going to take less than $150 million on this. These buildings just cost an enormous amount of money just to maintain them. They got elevators, they got painting, they got structural, they all kinds of. It costs them millions of dollars to maintain it. They're going to do whatever it is to get rid of them. So maybe they only take $100 million. Look at the loss that's being taken on that, and that's what's happening. We have a 19.6% national vacancy rate, but most of the Fortune 500 companies that would be in a building like this, even if the building is vacant, they are honoring their leases. Now, these leases are typically, 5 years. They could be 10 years. But I'm going to tell you, once those leases are honored and are completed, they're not going to pay them anymore. And that 19.6% national vacancy probably is going to double. And then what happens to the income and the cap rates when that drops like that? So the income will just drop to next to nothing. So double the vacancy to 40%. Could you imagine having a building that's only 60% occupied or 70% occupied? This building probably is almost completely empty. So let me go to my next slide. So my timing model is saying that the real estate is starting to complete. When it completes, it's the opposite of what happened during 20 and 21 when everything was exploding to the upside. Prices were just going crazy. Well, when we start completing, prices are going crazy, but in a negative way. Prices are losing money. And here's Starwood. Starwood's a terrific company, but they just defaulted on this North Atlantic business tower. They defaulted on $212 million because it wasn't worth that anymore because of vacancy factor. And these buildings are sold on income. You buy these things to make income off them. Now, if you can't make income, what do you want to buy them for? So the model is telling us what is happening, what is going to happen, and it's happening. This is telling us why this is happening because we have the stay-at-home, work-from-home phenomenon. Now, this is very evident. Now, Baltimore is not on one of my endangered cities. It is a failed city. This is what can happen to you if you allow your properties to stay in endangered cities that could become failed cities. This is downtown Baltimore. This is coming right out of their own newspapers. Who in their right mind would want to risk coming to downtown when the news out of Baltimore is all about shootings, carjackings, muggings, and out of control packs of teenagers? And this is what has happened. This is the why. My model is telling us what is going to happen, and it's perfectly telling us that it is going to happen. It is underway right now, and it's going to continue to complete, just as what the model is telling us. That's what I've been trying to bring to you, is that the model is on point, and it's exactly doing what it's supposed to do. It's telling us we have danger. If you're an investor, you need to pay attention to this. Let me go to my next slide. This is what's happening. This is the inside of that mall. It is empty. No one is coming here. Now, this is just in the news. This is WeWork. WeWork had one of the most prestigious office suites all across the globe. They were valued at $50 billion just a couple years ago, and it went bankrupt. It went to zero. What do you suppose happens to all that office space that they had controlled? And they went to zero because of the work from home phenomenon. That idea just didn't work. And they went bankrupt, but they lost $50 billion in value. But all those people that leased to them are losing money as well. That's the why. And this is ongoing right now. Now, this is coming up too. We just got this maybe 30, 60 days ago. Storybuilt, which is a big building company, has put up their projects. They're putting up their projects to get rid of them. They got 28 developments in Austin, Dallas, Denver, and Seattle, and they're trying to sell it right now. They're trying to get $2 billion for them because it's not viable anymore. They're trying to get rid of these properties. Let me go to my next slide. Let's just talk about them. This is the commercial space that we're talking about. Now, you all know what's going on in San Francisco. This is Whole Foods, their flagship. The most they were so proud of this 60,000 square foot shopping center right in the downtown area of San Francisco. 1 year crime and taxes, and they closed it down. Mostly crime, because they were concerned about their employees. They were concerned that their employees, and theft. They're concerned that their employees would be assaulted and be injured going to work, so they closed the down. And of course, everybody's closing down in San Francisco. This is the why. The timing model is predicting this is going to happen, and it's happening right now. So pay attention to it. Let's go further on. So this is right in Union Square. So Nordstrom's is closed, Walgreens is closed, CVS is closed, Office Depot, Container Store, Anthropology, Saks Fifth Avenue. All these guys are closing. This is one of the most prestigious locations in the country at one time, and it's gone. And again, here's what we're talking about. In 2020, this building at 350 California Street was up for sale for $250 million. Now, it just sold for $60 million. That's a 75% haircut. That is what's going to happen in these endangered cities when they become failed cities. That $60 million won't even be worth $60 million because no one will come to downtown San Francisco. And if no one's coming to San Francisco, what's the value of a building that's not used? You sell it on income. What's the value of a building that has no one's using it? What is that worth? It's not worth very much, and it costs millions of dollars to maintain. And here's what's going on around the country. Now, you know that the U.S. Bank Tower in Los Angeles is one of the big landmarks. There's so much vacancy in Los Angeles itself that you can fill 30 of these bank towers. 30 with the vacancies in Los Angeles alone. So when you're vacant like that, it means that no one is using that space. And again, this does not encompass all the S&P 500 companies that are still have leases that they're honoring. But I'm going to tell you, once those leases are done, they're not going to honor anymore, and they're not going to pay them. And that vacancy is going to skyrocket. Let me go to my next slide. This is all across the nation. Manhattan has 26 Empire buildings. It's now gone to 30 Empire State buildings. And I'm going to tell you that right now they have a record amount of new office buildings coming online that are being completed. Now, remember, they were started in 2020, and it takes 3 or 4 years by the time you get planning and financing and you start and you got to complete the building. It takes years to do this. It couldn't come at a worse time for these brand new office buildings coming. So Manhattan itself has 30 Empire State buildings vacant, and it's getting worse. Just think, Manhattan has been in the news with all the homelessness, all the crime, all the problems they're having. Who wants to go to Manhattan? No one does, and that's what's happening to these office towers. Exactly what the timing model is saying is going to happen. That is the what. This is the why. So now let's just think a little bit beyond that. So here, the California State Retirement has $52 billion of commercial real estate in their portfolio. Now, they've got millions of people that are depending on the California State Retirement System for their retirement, for their pension money. They work for the state. And part of the compensation program is the fact that they're going to get taken care of when they retire. But what happens when you have $52 billion in commercial real estate? And all of a sudden, commercial real estate starts cratering like what we're seeing now. That puts this whole system at risk. So, and you know that the pension funds buy a lot of, they're the ones that have these big pools of money. They're the ones that buy a lot of mortgages on these big towers. Let me go to my next slide. Just talk about that because it gets worse from here. Now, this is Howard Lutnick from Cantor Fitzgerald. He's saying it's going to be at least 2 years of very, very bad business. I think it could be a little more than that. Just depends on how this works out. Our timing model says it should start getting better about the same time, 2 to 3 years. So not too terribly bad. But he's talking about $700 billion in commercial debt set to default probably this year because we have trillions of dollars in these office complexes. So look at if the building drops, if it's worth $100 million and the value drops to 60% of what the value is. Well, a lot of these guys owe 70% on the building. So they're underwater and they walk away from the buildings. Well, the banks aren't in the business of holding commercial properties. And here's what's happening. This is worse than the great financial crisis. I've used this slide before. This comes out of Wall Street and Zero Hedge. The banks have $600 billion of unrealized losses. It's like 10 times what it was during the great financial crisis. So this is the tip. This is the beginning. This is where it's starting. So the cycle completion is starting in the commercial space, and it will spread to housing as well because it's going to cause lots of problems. This is very, very similar to the 80s when we had the RTC, but the RTC was started because of the problems in the commercial space during the 80s. All the over exuberance, the changes of the taxes made the properties no longer as viable, and people walked away from them. That's what's happening now. So we want you to be very, very aware of what you're doing. If you're in these endangered cities, it's going to be worse. Now, I think owning a single family home or a very conservative rental with all the demand that we have is going to be phenomenal. But there's going to be some problems in the space. We need to get you out of these areas that are really at risk into much better locations. You can get into Florida, Texas. Come here to Phoenix. We're just the business is very, very good here. So let me go to my next slide. So here we are looking at Phoenix again. I'm going to tell you again, you can see the two peaks. This is coming out of Federal Reserve Electronic Data System. You can see that it peaked in Q4 of 2022 for 552. And in Q4 of 2023, it's 492 and dropping. So I'm going to tell you it's in. The completion should take these prices further lower. Now, I'm not saying it has to be right away. Most of the damage is being done here in the commercial space. I'm going to tell you that the index, again, using an index rather than the dollars, you can see it's June 22 was at 346. And again, Q4 is 330. It's obviously, you can see the two peaks. And you can see that it's obviously heading south. This is an index, not a price. Now, if you'd like to talk to me, we do consultations with you, to see where we can fit into your business, what we can do to help you, to maybe this is going to be a great opportunity. Maybe you would just want to get started. You want to find out how to do that. You're welcome to call us for a consultation. We're more than happy to spend an hour and a half. That's typically what it typically takes. So give us a call. We'll see where we can fit into it. If you have any comments, please do that. Like my videos and subscribe. My very best to you guys. Bye-bye now.